So I want you to imagine a specific scenario for a second. Like you have just achieved something massive.
Right.
Maybe it's a graduation you've been working toward for literally years, or a huge promotion at work. Or maybe you just received some very public, glowing praise in front of all your peers.
Which should feel amazing, obviously.
Exactly. It should. The applause is ringing in your ears. People are shaking your hand. You've got the plaque, the degree, the new job title. But when you finally get alone, instead of celebrating, your stomach just completely drops in a panic.
Oh, yeah. It's a very visceral reaction. It's this sudden, overwhelming sense of dread that just washes over you the second the room goes quiet.
Yes, exactly. You feel this overwhelming certainty, and not just like a passing suspicion, but a rigid certainty that it is only a matter of time before everyone figures out you do not deserve any of it.
Yeah.
You feel like a fraud who just pulled off, I don't know, the heist of the century, and the detective is standing right outside your door. You're just waiting for that tap on the shoulder.
You really are. And it is an incredibly common feeling, And yet, paradoxically, it's one of the most isolating experiences a person can have.
It really is.
Because when you are standing in that room receiving that praise, you are absolutely convinced you're the only one in the building who doesn't belong.
Which brings us to what we're talking about today. So today, we're doing a deep dive into this fascinating psychological concept, basically exploring why we feel like imposters and why that feeling might actually be the ultimate ironclad proof of your competence.
I love this topic.
It's so good, right? The source we're looking at is titled, Am I Good Enough to Have Imposter Syndrome? So, okay, let's unpack this, because if you are listening to this right now and nodding your head, you really need to know you aren't alone.
No, not at all.
It is such a universal experience, but we treat it like this dark, shameful secret, that we have to hide from our colleagues and our friends.
We do.
Yeah.
And we treat it like a secret because we misinterpret the signal. Like if you have that panicked voice in your head telling you that you fooled everyone, you are not experiencing a symptom of incompetence.
Right.
That feeling is actually, it's documented proof of your capacity for deep, nuanced self-reflection. It basically means your brain is doing exactly what a highly developed analytical brain is supposed to do.
Okay, so let's figure out exactly what it is we're looking at here.
Yeah.
Because I hear the term imposter syndrome thrown around constantly, especially on, social media.
I know everywhere.
Yeah, right. Usually as like a catch-all for any moment of mild insecurity.
Yeah.
But this is a specific, clinically observed phenomenon, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like it has real roots.
It does, yeah. The phenomenon was actually first formally described back in 1978 by two clinical psychologists, Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes. And they were studying highly competent, deeply successful individuals, and they noticed this really striking pattern.
And what kind of pattern?
Well, these were people with undeniable objective achievements. I mean, degrees, awards, high-level careers. Yet they fundamentally believed they were an intellectual fraud.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the exact term Clance and Imes used to describe the core characteristic of the condition, intellectual fraud.
Intellectual fraud. I mean, that is a brutal label to apply to yourself. It implies, I don't know, malice almost, like as if you are actively trying to deceive the people around you.
Exactly. It implies intention where there really is none. And the scope of it is massive. It manifests in university lecture halls, in corporate boardrooms, hospitals, and it even creeps into people's personal lives and relationships.
No one is safe, basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But in every single environment, there is one non-negotiable constant, which is that the objective, measurable achievement is always accompanied by this persistent, unyielding inner voice whispering, "You are not good enough, and they are going to find out."
It's like being an actor who accidentally wandered onto the wrong stage, but you somehow keep getting applause and you're just sweating, right? Waiting for the director to yell, cut, and kick you out.
That is the perfect way to describe it. And what's fascinating here is the psychological mechanism allowing those two realities to exist at the exact same time.
Yeah, how does that work?
So the objective achievement and the inner voice of doubt are living side by side in the same mind. You would logically assume that achieving something great would provide enough data to just, silence the voice of doubt.
Right, like, hey, look at this diploma. Obviously, I'm smart.
Exactly. But the achievement doesn't silence the voice. It merely coexists with it. The reality of the success and the feeling of failure run on these parallel tracks, completely blind to one another.
But hold on. If we were talking about highly rational people, right, like scientists, engineers, executives, people who make data-driven decisions for a living, how do they look at a literal spreadsheet of their own objective successes and still conclude they are faking it.
That sounds crazy, right?
Yeah. Like, at some point, shouldn't basic logic just override the emotion?
You would think so, yeah. But the brain is incredibly protective of its core beliefs. This really comes down to a form of cognitive dissonance.
Okay, I'm following.
If your foundational belief is, I am not truly capable, and you are suddenly presented with a major promotion, well, those two ideas are in direct conflict.
Right.
So to resolve that intense psychological friction, your brain has to reject one of them. And because core identities are just so deeply entrenched, the brain almost always chooses to reject the promotion.
Wow. It just rationalizes the success away.
Exactly. It attributes the success to literally anything other than innate ability. Like, oh, it was luck, it was timing, the boss just likes you.
Or the test was unusually easy this year.
Yes. Or you worked exceptionally hard this one time, but there's no way you'll be able to do it again. The brain effectively builds a firewall to prevent the positive evidence from rewriting that negative self-image.
Okay, but if the brain is just playing this sort of defensive game with itself, why is it so dangerous? Like, if the success is real and the fraudulence is entirely fabricated, is this just a quirky personality trait, or does it do actual damage?
Oh, it does profound damage. The degradation of a person's life when they buy into that inner voice is severe. I mean, start with how it twists positive experiences.
Like the graduation we talked about.
Right. Those moments of celebration transform entirely. Instead of experiencing joy or satisfaction, you experience intense discomfort and anxiety. You're standing on the stage receiving an award, but internally, you are managing a full-blown crisis.
That's so sad, actually. You can't even enjoy the view from the mountaintop because your brain is telling you that you snuck past the guards to get there and security is on the way.
That's exactly it. And in professional environments, it takes an even heavier toll through a mechanism we can call the freeze response.
The freeze response.
Yeah. When you genuinely believe you are an imposter, making any decision becomes an agonizing risk. Any choice you make, any idea you pitch, well, that could be the one that finally exposes your lack of knowledge.
Oh, I see. So you just do nothing.
Exactly. People freeze. They stop making decisions. They stop raising their hands in meetings. They actively avoid seeking out new opportunities because to them, a new opportunity is just a new arena to be exposed in. They basically put a permanent ceiling on their own potential.
But there's another layer to this behavior that seems totally backwards, based on the source material. It's the vicious cycle imposters get trapped in when they don't freeze, but instead go in the complete opposite direction.
Yes. The productivity trap. This is a crucial mechanism to understand. Out of this intense, constant fear of discovery, people suffering from imposter syndrome often overwork immensely.
Right.
The logic goes, I'm not as smart as they think I am, so if I just work twice as hard as everyone else, maybe I can cover the gap. Maybe they won't realize I don't belong here. They are desperately overcompensating.
They are running on a treadmill, but the speed of the treadmill is set by their own panic.
Yes. And here's the brutal irony of that treadmill. The overwork actually works. Working twice as hard generally leads to more achievements.
Of course it does.
It leads to better grades, new promotions, more praise. But because we know how the brain rationalizes success, that new achievement does not cure the feeling. In fact, it generates even more fear.
Wait, really?
Yeah, the stakes just got higher. The imposter thinks, oh no, now I have a bigger title. They expect even more of me, and my deception has to be even grander.
Wait, so getting a promotion actually makes the syndrome worse. That is totally counterintuitive. It's like trying to put out a fire by pouring gasoline on it.
It is. It feels like a glitch in human programming, doesn't it? You are rewarded for your hard work, and the reward actively damages your mental health.
It makes no sense.
But it makes clinical sense when you look at the underlying mechanics. The external validation, the promotion, the raise, it never addresses the core internal belief.
Because of that firewall.
Exactly. When you give a perceived fraud a bigger title, you aren't validating their competence in their eyes. You are just increasing the size of their con. You are raising the pedestal they believe they are going to eventually fall from.
Wow.
External evidence cannot cure an internal identity issue.
So you literally cannot logic your way out of a feeling using someone else's metrics.
Okay, but if success actually aggravates this feeling, who is suffering from this the most? Because we usually associate self-doubt with people who are struggling, right?
Right.
People failing to grasp a concept or falling behind in their field.
And that is exactly where people get this wrong.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. The data from our deep dive flips that assumption entirely on its head, right?
Completely. Imposter syndrome does not target underachievers. It disproportionately affects high performers. It zeroes in on the perfectionists. It targets the people who bravely take on new challenges and push the boundaries of their respective fields.
It's an affliction of the highly capable. It is the ultimate high achievers paradox. The very traits that propel these individuals to the top of their fields, their meticulous attention to detail, their impossibly high standards, their willingness to step into the unknown, those are the exact same traits that make them hyper-aware of their own limitations.
Right? It's almost like the more you know about a subject, the more you realize how much you don't know. When you are a beginner, you don't know enough to know you're bad at something.
The Dunning-Kruger effect, exactly.
Yeah. But when you are an expert, you see every tiny flaw in your own work.
Yeah.
It's why history is full of literal world changers who felt this exact same way. I mean, the source mentions Albert Einstein, Maya Angelou,
Yeah.
Meryl Streep.
It is remarkable to look at the historical record and see those specific names wrestling with this exact feeling.
It fundamentally changes how you view success, doesn't it? Maya Angelou wrote 11 books, changed the entire landscape of literature, and yet she famously reported feeling like she was running a game on everybody. She literally thought, uh-oh, they're going to find out now.
Every single time she published a book.
And Albert Einstein, a man whose name is a global synonym for the word genius, called himself an involuntary swindler. He felt his work didn't deserve the attention it received. And Meryl Streep, clutching multiple Oscars, wondering why anyone ever wanted to see her on screen again.
When you look at individuals functioning at that level of genius, it forces us to ask a very different set of questions about what this syndrome actually is.
Exactly. I mean, if literal historical geniuses and Oscar winners feel like frauds, is the goal really to cure this feeling? Or is it just a built-in feature of having a highly functional, analytical brain?
That is the exact shift in perspective we need to make here. The goal is not to cure the feeling. We have to fundamentally reframe how we view self-criticism.
Okay, how so?
Well, as long as it doesn't trigger that paralyzing freeze response we talked about earlier, self-criticism is actually the engine of excellence. Think about the inverse. People who never doubt themselves rarely ask how they can improve.
Oh, wow. Let that sit for a second. If you never doubt yourself, you never asked how to improve, you just coast on your current level of ability forever.
You stagnate entirely. Absolute certainty in your own brilliance is a developmental dead end. The doubt, the questioning, the fear that you might not know enough, that is the exact mechanism that drives you back to the library.
It keeps you sharp.
Exactly. That is what makes you double-check your data, practice your speech one more time, or refine your theory until it is bulletproof.
Okay, so what does this all mean for us? Like, how do we actually live with this day to day? Because we know that trying to outachieve the feeling doesn't work, since the promotion just makes the fear bigger.
Right.
And we know we can't logic it away, because our brains will just filter the success into the junk folder.
Yeah.
So what's the move here?
We have to accept the ultimate reality of what this feeling represents. Imposter syndrome is emphatically not proof of incompetence. It is frequently the necessary price of intellectual growth and healthy ambition. It is the toll you pay on the road to mastery.
So it's basically like muscle soreness after a heavy workout.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, think about what happens when you lift heavy weights at the gym. Your muscles tear slightly, and it hurts immensely the next day. But you don't wake up sore and think, oh no, I'm a fraud at exercising. I must be doing this completely wrong. I should quit.
Right, you don't do that.
You think, I am sore because I am getting stronger. It's uncomfortable, sure, but it doesn't mean you're bad at exercising. It's literal biological proof that you are growing.
That's it. If we connect this to the bigger picture, that muscle soreness analogy is the exact blueprint for how to handle imposter syndrome. The first step to transforming this barrier into fuel is recognizing the feeling simply as part of the process rather than proof of worth.
You just change the label on the feeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
When that voice flares up and tells you that you don't belong, instead of panicking and trying to fight it, you can just greet it.
Greet it. Like, hello, panic.
Kind of, yeah. You can observe it objectively and say, right. I feel this way because I am doing something difficult. I feel this way because I have stepped out of my comfort zone and I am stretching beyond my current capabilities. My brain doesn't have historical data for this new environment yet, so it is defaulting to panic.
It's just mental muscle soreness. It means you are lifting heavy intellectual weights.
Exactly. It means you are engaged in healthy ambition. You are not meant to have all the answers the moment you step into a new role. If you had all the answers, well, you wouldn't be challenging yourself.
That makes so much sense.
The discomfort of the imposter feeling is simply the friction of your own boundaries expanding.
This completely changes the way I view those moments of panic. So let's recap the journey we've just been on in this deep dive.
Let's do it.
We started with that terrifying feeling of being a fraud who is about to be exposed to the world. We looked at the clinical origins back in the 1970s with Clance and Imes, the psychological firewall our brains build to reject our own success, the vicious cycle of overwork, and the genuine danger of letting that fear freeze you in your tracks.
Well, we also completely flipped the narrative on who experiences this.
Right. We discovered that the next time you hear that inner voice calling you an intellectual fraud, you shouldn't despair. You should actually take comfort in it. You should remember that you are sitting in the exact same waiting room as Albert Einstein, Maya Angelou, and Meryl Streep.
It is incredibly distinguished company to keep. And it brings us to a crucial final thought from the source material. When we grapple with these feelings, we almost always ask ourselves the wrong question.
What do we usually ask?
We ask, will I ever be enough? Will I ever reach a point where I feel entirely confident and the doubt just stops?
Right. We want a finish line.
We want an arrival point. But that is a trap, because the arrival point of absolute certainty doesn't exist for people who are constantly pushing themselves. The real, honest question to ask yourself is this: am I willing to continue to grow up even with the discomfort of not having all the answers?
Are you willing to carry the doubt as a companion rather than fighting it as an enemy?
Yeah.
Because if you accept the doubt as, a roommate almost, there is no limit to what you can learn and achieve.
Growth requires vulnerability. You cannot learn something new without first admitting you don't know it. Feeling like an imposter is just the feeling of being vulnerable to your own expanding potential.
I want to leave you, our listener, with a final unscripted thought to mull over as you go about your day. We've spent this entire time dissecting the minds of the people who do feel this syndrome, the high achievers, the perfectionists, the innovators. But think about the reverse for a moment. If imposter syndrome is simply the tax we pay for intellectual growth, curiosity, and deep self-awareness, what does the complete absence of self-doubt say about the people who are absolutely 100% certain they deserve everything they have?
Ooh, that is a heavy thought.
Are the people who never feel like imposters the only real imposters out there?
That raises an incredibly important question about self-awareness, and honestly, it is a brilliant place to leave things. Thank you so much for exploring this with me.
And thank you for joining us on this deep dive and for bringing your curiosity. Remember to embrace the discomfort of growth, welcome the mental soreness, and we will catch you on the next one.